Hello, this is Kevin Doherty, your host for the Just Thinking podcast. This podcast is presented by Market Scale, and today we're in the beautiful downtown Dallas Market Scale studios. We've got Reunion Tower behind us, and it's a beautiful day in Dallas-Fort Worth. Today I'm going to be just thinking with Larry North. Now, for those of you that are boomers like me or millennials, you probably well know the name Larry North, especially if you're from this part of the world. But for those of you who may not know Larry, I'm going to give him the opportunity to kick things off by telling you who he is and a little bit about himself. So, Larry, thanks for being part of Just Thinking.
My pleasure. I guess I have to talk about myself.
You got it.
I don't mind. I had a really great career in the fitness industry. I started extremely young. Yeah. I owned gyms as far as South Beach, Miami, throughout North Texas, Houston. I wrote 3 best-selling books, Get Fit, Living Lean, Slim Down for Life. I had a global successful infomercial called The Great North American Slim Down.
Awesome.
And it was a great show. It was all intellectual property, a 21-step, day-by-day, step-by-step program on how to not just lose the weight, but keep it off, how to learn how to eat, not diet. So there was sort of revolutionary stuff back in the day. Yeah. And gosh, I did radio in the local market for 3.5 decades. I had my own TV show called Get Fit. I've traveled the world doing presentations in that genre. And really, it was wonderful.
That is awesome. What a great journey, a great professional journey. But leading up to that professional journey, you had to develop some level of resilience and grit. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you think helped to shape that grit and that resilience.
My father was actually profiled on 60 Minutes, not once, but twice. And so if you take the 60-minute interviewer shows, it sort of crystallizes everything, because he was a degenerate compulsive gambler and the first to use his gambling as the reason he committed crimes. He couldn't stop gambling, so he robbed banks as a result to get money. And that was in 1976. And in 1976, Dan Rather did that segment. And at the very end of the segment says, Irv, look at the camera. You're a gambler. What are the odds on you quitting gambling? And that's after he was sentenced to go to treatment in Brecksville, Ohio, as part of the sentence. After he did time, go to treatment for the gambling. And my dad goes, well, it's a long shot, but the one thing I don't want to do is ever end up back in prison. 10 years later, Kevin, they did a follow-up. Harry Reasoner did the segment. They said, we did a story on a guy named Irving North. We were seeing how he was getting along after 10 years. We found him, and behind him's the prison where he'd spent, because he taught everyone in that program at that hospital how to swindle banks, and they would go gambling at night. So that's my dad. And so that was a challenging upbringing, to say the least.
And you moved around a lot.
We moved around from coast to coast. Right. I grew up, I went to grade school in Vegas in the 60s, went junior high in New York, and finished my high school in Texas.
Wow. So your journey to becoming a successful business person was a pretty unorthodox one.
No question. In my mind, it was just because, school wasn't my thing. Although I am on the Wall of Fame at Richland College, which is nice, but I just wasn't a focused student. I mean, when you go to school, knowing what's going on in your home, your mind isn't focused. I didn't have parents that they were so preoccupied with their own problems that I sort of didn't get any kind of encouragement school-wise. But I also knew in my heart, I used to have a phrase that used to drive my mother's crazy. I said, everything's going to be okay. She didn't like me saying that because it wasn't okay. Right. But in my mind, I knew that it would be okay. I just sort of had a sense of knowing at a young age that I chose the direction of my life. It wasn't chosen for me. Wow. And so I sort of knew, I just always knew that I was going to have an optimal life.
Well, you had an innate sense of hope, right?
No question. And I think that hope, you bring up hope, and we didn't discuss that previously. I always say, in terms of, people that feel destitute, feel that there's no hope to their solution. And I know this through weight loss, all the decades of helping people try to lose weight, which has been an epidemic problem in our culture. I think it's a worldwide epidemic, but certainly in this country. Well, when they lose hope, they feel like there's no solution. And I always believe there is a solution. Sure. There is a solution. You just have to figure it out and know what it is and be guided properly.
Yeah. And along the way too, you learn to adapt. So your various moves, you learn to adapt to new environment. Business wise, you had to learn to adapt. So talk a little bit about how adaptability is such a critical part of who you are and how you've succeeded.
Well, I'm going to share a story with you that you don't know. So I was 28. My brother was 18. He was just finishing Richardson High School. He lived with me because my mom had cancer surgery and recovered with her sister in California. And one day I come running up the third story steps of a not so good apartment. You always know you don't live in a not so good apartment when they don't want to deliver pizza to it. And I have a piece of paper in my hand. I say, Adam, wake up. Wake up. I've got a lease in my hand. I'm doing my dream gym. It's a lease to the most prestigious shopping center maybe in the world, but it's in Highland Park Village. And my brother's sort of just waking up and he's like, what are you talking about? You don't have any money. I said, I signed the lease. They didn't ask me if I had any money. They didn't ask me if I had any business experience. I just signed the lease. And I said, but right now, come down and help me. I've got a piece of furniture downstairs and I need you to help me bring it up. It was a treadmill. And we bring up this treadmill. We have no furniture in our apartment. There's a mattress without a box spring in each bedroom, a big TV with a beanbag in the living room. So he's like, he just keeps asking me, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? I said, let me worry about that. I'm going to be back. I come back. He's jogging on the treadmill, positioned where he can see himself in his bathroom mirror with nothing but underpants on. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, big brother, if you're going to open up a gym, I got to get in shape. Because in his mind, he knew that I was going to open up a gym, even though that there was obstacles. So I said, come on, you shut this thing off. We got to sit down. I said, Adam, this isn't your dream, but it's always been my dream. My dream so much that people got tired of hearing about me opening up a gym when I was bouncing in bars and I would talk to people like, oh God, he's going to talk about his gym. But I said, Adam, that's my dream, but it's not your dream. But what's your dream? Because I'm going to need your help. You're going to have to help me live my dream initially. But I promise if you help me, I will help you live your dream. And it's like a reel in his head. He goes, I want to retire when I'm 35. I want to travel the world and I want to live the good life. And this is a kid that had no connection to that life. I said, what? And he repeated it again. Now, what would a lot of big brothers or parents say, well, Adam, you have to have this. I didn't. I said, if that's what you want, help me live my dream in this gym and I'll help you live your dream. And the story is that Adam did not retire at 35. He was 36. He didn't travel the world once. He traveled it twice on American Airlines. And if you went the same direction, you could keep going. And he currently lives in Acapulco on the beach. So he lives that good life. But here's what I said. I said, Adam, you keep bringing up money. If I allow lack of money, lack of education, lack of people believing in me, lack of support, lack of friends, we're going to be in this dump the rest of our lives. So I'm not going to allow anything to prevent me from achieving what I want to achieve, whether it's lack of a business plan. I'm just going to create and then I'm going from there because we're getting out of this apartment and we're going to live a good life. And I did preface it, but we're going to have to work hard. It's not going to just come to us. We're going to have to go to it.
Wow. The power of vision.
Definitely the power of vision.
It's hope and vision as well. You shared with me a little bit earlier, starting your first marketing position, business where you were representing yourself. Do you mind sharing that story?
Well, if I'm not the very first personal trainer in North Texas, I'm in the conversation. And I don't remember who else was in the conversation, but I know I'm in it. And so basically I decided that's what I was going to do. And I knew that in order to do that, I needed customers. I needed business. I knew I wanted people. Remember, people were telling me nobody's going to pay $40, $50 an hour for you to train them. That's what everyone's telling me. Even people in the gym, many that are trainers today told me that it wouldn't work. So I just got this idea. I had some idea about PR and marketing only because I knew it existed, but I didn't know really what it was.
Right.
So I basically started my own firm looking back.
Yep.
With one client, me, and as John Smith, I just started looking up in the phone book because we didn't have access to Google of, Channel 5. And I'd call Channel 5 switchboard. I'd say, may I talk to a producer of the news? They'd give me some producer and I would just say, here's what I'd say. Hey, John, I'm John Smith and I represent Larry North, who is the first personal trainer in all of North Texas. This guy has charisma. He's good. He's smart. He inspires people and he's good on camera. And I think you're going to want to put him on your show sometime. And I would wait. And next thing I'd know, you had your recorder. And there was one time where I came home and I had a voicemail from the Dallas Morning News, a voicemail from D Magazine, a voicemail from one of the top 3 channels. And I'm like, okay. And then, but here's the thing. That client I represented, which was me, you still got to be able to step up. Right. In other words, you have to still step up. You have to be able to give a good interview. Yes. You have to be able to be okay on camera. Yes. You got to have a little chutzpah. Yeah. And I did. So,
and you still got it, Larry.
I definitely had the ability to what I call flip the switch. Yeah. It didn't matter if I didn't have 1 hour sleep. If I had to go show up at a news station and flip that switch, it was just like, boom, I'm on.
You and I talked a little bit before about critical thinking.
Yes.
And we sort of redefined it around your adaptability, your ability to, think quick and make a decision and to move forward. And a lot of that is the result of your critical thinking. You're a thoughtful guy, right? To create the vision, you have to be a thinker and so forth. So one of the other thoughts that you and I shared and a critical thought approach to solving the issue of branding was this whole idea of a Larry North plate.
Well, so, one of the best decisions I made was being a bouncer and a doorman at a very young age. The drinking age was 18 when I was 18, when you were 18, changed to 21 when we turned 21. So I'm working in a gym. There's a guy goes, hey, I run security for these nightclubs. I like big guys hanging around. I go work and I'm meeting people. So, before I know it, you're identifying in a nightclub who the most popular, people that you would want to get to know. Yeah. One of them was an ad agency guy. Okay. And he goes, hey, I'm going to give you a book. And he gives me a book. Yeah. One day comes up to the nightclub with a book called Guerrilla Marketing, which is down there's like gazillion renditions. I'm reading this book and it's how do you basically market yourself without having to spend money? Because I didn't have any. Right. So I start getting on the radio and I'm thinking, it's a real pain in the rear for people to order healthy in most restaurants, certainly back then. Right. And so I decided to try it. I go to this popular restaurant, say, listen, I'm on the radio. And if you put this Larry North plate on your menu, I'm going to tell people, my listeners, they can come eat healthy at your place and they don't have to think about it. The waiter's not going to mess it up. The kitchen's not going to have to waste food because they didn't do it right. And I'm going to take all the ingredients you already have so you don't have to buy anything new. Well, one North plate, then another North plate, then another North plate. And we're not talking about dumpy places. Right. We're talking about places that were popular. Right. Owners that would never put someone's name on a menu prior. Right. And the next thing I know, I've got North plates all over North Texas, which even led to my own restaurant called North South. But we'll talk about that some other time.
I love that. Well, what a powerful marketing tool and approach. It's just another example of.
Let me say this. We didn't have Instagram or Facebook or any of that. So imagine if we had, but so I tell people now, you have that. There's nothing stopping you from marketing yourself without spending a whole lot of money on those platforms that could explode. But again, it goes back to, you still have to have something. You have to be able to offer something that people want.
Yes. Yeah. You talked when we were visiting a little bit earlier about the power of relationships in your life. And I was also asking you to consider, words of wisdom that you would give to the younger generation kind of going forward that want to have this hopeful entrepreneurial spirit and vision of a Larry North. How does relationship play into all of that?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there because nobody does anything on their own.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
You have to have, I remember watching recently, actually, Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary, how he talked about all the different people from Joe Weider to the different producers and people in real estate that he met that helped him along the way. There's no such thing as a self-made man.
Right.
We are created because we have the smarts to ask those that know more than us.
Right.
And to me, relationships, and as you get older, you tend to really, really understand this. And you also know that there's certain people that bring joy into your life, and there's others that don't. There's others that actually bring chaos into your life or don't add value or don't give you the energy and support that you want. So I got to a point in my life where those that don't bring me joy, I may have to love them from a distance, but it will be a distance. But those that do bring me joy, I need to cherish and coddle and keep them as close to me as possible. And so I'm just huge on relationships. And I speak from, just experience of that. Even to this day, I'm on text threads with people I've known since I'm in junior high. I'm on text threads with newer relationships too. But I look back at through the decades of these wonderful human beings, the people that meant the most to me throughout my life are still in my life for the most part.
That is great advice for people going forward. And, I'm thinking about, the work that you did in the fitness industry, health and fitness industry. What were the greatest takeaways for you from that work?
Well, I can tell you one thing. Every great achievement I had in that industry was predicated off of failure. So my infomercial, which was pretty big. I mean, it did 150 million in revenue, and these are 1990s dollars with no back end support. It failed. I did it with the behemoth Guthy-Ranker, and they shelved it. And I somehow figured a way to talk the CEO of, actually it was the lawyer who became the CEO. He sold me that show for $5,000, and I offered a 50-cent royalty of every unit that I sold. I flipped it to another company that 6 weeks later, that guy that sold it to me goes, I need to go into our board of directors. Tell me what I just did because your show's now #1 on the infomercial billboards. And so it was a failed show. And we retweaked it. We took from called Reveal the Thin from Within, which failed, to the same content, basically, became the Great North American Slim Down. My first book, Get Fit, I got 13 rejection letters from publishers. I was almost in tears after reading number 13. And the literary agent starts laughing. I go, why are you laughing? She goes, because most publishers don't even take the time to give you a rejection letter. And then that was the 14th publisher. And that book remained on the bestseller list in this region for 122 weeks or something like that. And so and so failure doesn't bother me really. It's just, you know, it's sort of like, being a boxer. You're going to get hit. There's no way you can be a boxer and not get hit. Right. And sometimes you might even hit the floor, but you still got to get back up and you still got to keep swinging and keep punching and keep moving forward. Sort of like, in the movie, one of the Rocky V, where he talks about, you know, it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's true because nothing, and he says, nothing hits as hard as life. Life is going to hit hard. And I don't care who you are. It's going to hit you, but you have to choose to be resilient, or you can be a victim, or you can be a survivor. And unfortunately, we have both.
You, after all of that, you chose to walk away after how many years?
42 years, in fitness. It just reached a point where I just felt there was nothing left to prove, nothing left to achieve. I had, the thing I'm probably most proudest of my 42-year career in fitness is how many people worked for me and then went on to achieve their own massive success. And I have a long list of them. And so it was just time to do something differently. And then simultaneously, I sort of ended up going from fitness to finance. And I love this whole private equity world. And you actually can influence people in a much different way. And as an entrepreneur, I relate well to entrepreneurs. I know what they've gone through to achieve their success over a period of years. And, you know, not everyone knows how to scale a business. Not everyone knows how do you take this business that maybe you're doing well, you're doing a couple million in profit, but how do you take it to go from 2 million to 10 10 million. And when you go to 10 million, it might take a different skill set or human being to take it to 30 million.
Right.
So, I love it. And I'm really Kevin, I'm blessed with some of the people that I've been exposed to. I mean, I've traveled the world with a self-made billionaire friend of mine. Most people still remember Ross Perot Sr.
Yes.
I was at his office more times than I can count.
Wow.
And just because he liked me, and he was a very inspiring guy. And then one day I'm at my gym in Highland Park and Norm Brinker walks in and says he listens to me on the radio, and a friendship ensued. But these are people that have achieved massive success.
Right.
And so and you know what I've learned too?
What?
They like sharing. If they feel you're eager for knowledge, they'll give you the whole darn recipe book.
Right. Well, speaking of eager for knowledge, everything that you've said in the time we've been talking just indicates to me what a tremendous lifelong learner you are.
Yeah.
Life is your classroom, right? And then the fact that you're able to adapt, like you said, 42 years in fitness, and then you're in finance and you're thriving in that as well, and still learning. And then kind of connecting all the dots. There are the relationships along the way that give that stability and that strength to help fuel your ambitions and that kind of thing. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I can give you a great example of why you never stop learning. I was on radio. I was on TV. I've had a microphone. This is my best friend, my drug of choice right here, baby. And my second drug of choice is camera. And here I am, what you'd call a communicator, right?
Yes.
But not so successful with some of the people I love the most. And I realized that I wasn't always communicating skillfully. You know, my wife's the most important thing in the world. And I realized that I'm a fixer kind of person. So I'll give you an example. She gets a fender bender, comes home, she's distraught.
Sure.
She's starting to explain. I'm like, I got it. Don't worry. I got it. I'm going to get it. Like I'm telling her, don't worry about it because I'm going to fix it. And finally she's like, I know you're going to fix it. I just want to share it with you. I just want to tell you what happened. Would you just please listen to me? Now that's a little example, but it's a big example in the sense that that's where, as a man, I was never really giving her the space and time to express herself because I just thought I would take care of the problem. Right. Now, that's a learning experience because over time, if you're not willing to adapt to learn how to communicate and skillfully to the people you love the most, you might have a relationship that'll deteriorate and you don't even know why. And it's because you weren't paying attention. You weren't listening to what that person really needs. And then it transcends to my daughter. You know, maybe I'm communicating with her the same way. Maybe I'm too unintentionally demonstrative and giving, like I tell people, you know, stop shooting all over people. Right. You know, you should. And no one wants to be told what to do. Right. So instead of shooting on someone, I might go, hey, you know, Kevin, are you open to some suggestions? Then I'm getting permission to be able to share with you what I might do if I was in that situation versus just telling you what to do. That's an example of, hey, I'm 65 and I'm still learning that. Right. And I'm willing to learn it. Why? Because I want to have the best relationships with the people that mean the most to me. Yeah, and in order to do that, you got to be open-minded to self-reflect.
Yes. And you've got to be open-minded to other viewpoints. Your wife's viewpoint of that situation was not your viewpoint.
Correct. And also too, is that there's wisdom that she possesses. Right. That I have to be open to, not just being the one fixing. Maybe she can help me fix a problem. And the truth is she can't.
You know, a lot of our listeners and or viewers are educators, because that's my background. That's the field I've been in for 40 plus years. And so I'm just curious, do you have words of wisdom or advice to educators and students based on your life experiences that you think might benefit them?
You know, that's a big question because of so many people that have influenced me in my life. I just would tell you this, is that you might have someone in the 8th grade, someone in the 12th grade, someone that's in college. They're smart. A lot of smart people were around, and allowing that person to be more expressive, and that we don't know all the answers. And so often there's these little gems that are around us that can actually give us advice, even though you don't expect it to come from someone that might be in their 20s or even in their 30s or even in their teens to tell you the truth. What I've learned from the younger generation is how smart they really are and how much access to knowledge they have compared to when we were younger. So you look at AI as an example. AI can do a lot, but it doesn't necessarily teach you how to be intuitive yet. It doesn't teach you how to think off your feet without having to go to AI. You know, like sometimes what are you going to take your AI out every time you have a problem solve? If you're in a meeting, you've got to be able to think on your feet. And I think being able as educators to teach people some of the things that are outside the book, so to speak.
That's powerful advice. You know, I was thinking when you were sharing that about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
We had the same agent, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, his 5th habit is seek first to understand, then be understood. And that's what you learned with your wife was I need to seek first to understand, then be understood.
And you know, it's interesting, you know, have you ever heard him speak in person? He passed away.
I met him before he passed.
You know, he had a soft voice. And I once asked him about that in a green room. We were at the same event. And of course, I was so enthralled with that incredible human being. And he said, Larry, sometimes when I speak softly, people have to lean in to hear what I have to say. Versus if I'm speaking loudly and it pushes them away. And I thought, that's interesting. And sometimes the take home there is, you know, sometimes with a soft voice, you can be even more influential than if you're yelling or screaming, so to speak.
100%. Well, Larry, I try to keep these episodes to about 30 minutes, but I think we could probably talk for 30 days and keep going.
You're a gem of a human being. I had shared with you that, you know, on LinkedIn, I don't really respond too much to messages, but I felt so drawn to you on our little LinkedIn connection. And I don't believe in coincidences. It's such a delight to meet you in person. And thank you for allowing me to be on your show. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. And I want to give you the opportunity to have the last word. So is there anything else about which you're just thinking that I didn't give you an opportunity to say or address?
Sure. I end all my presentations on a message. I don't have time to share the whole story, but how important forgiveness is. And that when I forgive somebody, it's not for them. It rarely is. It's for me, because as I've gotten older, the one thing I don't want to do is have to carry weight around. I've had weights in my life, in my gyms, my whole life. And I don't want to carry this unhealthy weight of feeling animosity or revenge or feeling done wrong by somebody. So I tend to forgive a lot. But often it's time, and even my wife and I discuss, I'm not doing that for them. Doing that for me, because so that I could sleep great at night. So I would tell you the same thing, is that, you know, if you've had someone in your life, it could be someone that usually it's someone that you love, someone, it could be a relative that you feel this anger towards. Boy, if I could give you some advice, just let it go. Let it go, because it's not doing them any good, and it's certainly not doing you any good. And so forgiveness has become a great tool in my life.
Super powerful note on which to end this episode. So Larry, thanks for being part of Just Thinking. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you very much.